Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, if you listened to the podcast before, you know these are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They are all great companies. You should be using them too. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors because you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to their website. You can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to thank Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an AD, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just love the platform. Go to huddle.com. Join the 100 million fans. Turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Beacon Connective Vital Signs. Vital Signs Wall of Fame has been helping schools share their legacies for the past decade. But Beacon Creative is an actual content creation service that's going to take your data and turn it into compelling stories for the digital platforms you have in your school. You're going to send your data to Beacon Creative, and they're going to compose these eye-catching stories. You got to see it to believe it. I want you to email John Townsend at John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com for more information. It's Beacon Creative, part of the Vital Signs Wall of Fame family. We also want to thank Home Campus. Now, if you schedule, if you keep track of rosters, if you manage your facilities, if you communicate with your coaches and your parents, if you manage your student-athlete eligibility and clearance, you're going to use Home Campus every day. Go to homecampus.com. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on the podcast. homecampus.com. We also want to thank Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Let their team turn you into a social media marketing guru. Whether it's a simple social media post or an entire newsletter, the team at Gipper will have you up and running in no time. Go to Gipper.com. And as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. We want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and so can you. And here's a cool thing. While you're earning your degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Go to Ohio University and check out their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to thank our friends at Hometown. Hometown continues to change the game for schools with their solutions that include things like, digital ticketing. They're still the leading supplier. But how about athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising? The list just goes on. Whether you're an AD, a coach, even a principal, Hometown's going to show you how to save time, how to raise more money, and how to bring your community together. That's hometown.com. And let's thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents, your coaches, how about your student athletes, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that connects you with your stakeholders and supplies you with that vital data. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. And don't forget to mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to Ohio today, and our guest is Brian Phelps. Brian is a certified master athletic administrator. He's the director of athletics at Indian Hill High School. That's in Cincinnati, Ohio. Brian and I connected at the recent NADC in Tampa. I actually crashed his breakfast table. He was nice enough to let me join his group, and we just got to talking. And I said, boy, you need to be on the podcast. And he was gracious enough for that to join us. So Brian Phelps, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a busy time, post NADC, winter sports are, full go and, those athletic directors are working hard. So let's go and jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us your quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe just take us up through your own college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Brian Phelps origin story?
Yeah, so I born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, with a little extent when I was really young. My dad was in the army, so I lived in Germany for a little bit. But by the time kindergarten came around, I was in Cincinnati and went to a public school through 10th grade. I finished at a small private school my junior and senior year, and really set me up well for like the next phase of my life. I was originally going to a small school to play baseball and football and had an opportunity to try to walk on at the University of Cincinnati, and that did not work out. And after a couple of quarters, I felt like I need to figure some things out. So I enlisted in the United States Air Force, and I was in for 5 years. And while I was in, I got 2 years of college under my belt. So when I got out, I had about 2 years left, and finished my undergrad at Northern Kentucky University and my master's at Xavier University.
Well, I got a ton of questions. The Germany thing. I mean, you mentioned kindergarten. Do you any memories of Germany? As a kid, playing soccer, or just too young?
I was pretty young, but I always wonder if I actually remember, or I remember the stories that have been told to me, like being in the airport. And yeah, I had a blanket that my mom talks about that was like my security blanket, because it was just my mom and I a lot because my dad would be out in the field. But what I do remember is when we moved back to Cincinnati, some friends that we made in Germany would come visit us. So I would get German Legos or German space sets. So I had some German toys that they brought as gifts. And I think that helped me connect my memories to Germany.
Oh, wow. Great stuff. As you started to, let's say, have the American experience in sports, was it, and I ask these questions for all of our guests, was it backyard football? Was it driveway basketball? What are some of the memories that stick out for you from those early days?
Yeah, from the time I grew up, I think it's a lot of the same stories that we talk about, going to the park, being there all day, playing whatever we could, the rubber ball at the corner store if we had enough money to buy a rubber ball and play baseball or slam ball or a pickup football game. And it really was a lot of those home when the street lights came on kind of thing. And we talk about those were the good old days, and kids don't do that stuff anymore. And I often say we don't let our kids ride their bikes to the park and stay. It's our fault that doesn't happen sometimes. But I got into the recreational, more team type of games, that fourth or fifth grade area, and into the school sports. But it all started at the park with my friends for sure.
Now, again, you go from, the backyard, the park to, more organized sports, middle school and high school. Was it, for you, was it just something you felt this in your DNA? I'm going to play sports, or was it more so, and it could have been both, all my friends are doing it, so I'm going to do it too?
Yeah, I think just my family in general was sports oriented family, and you develop friendships, and I think that's what they do. And you start playing not whole baseball or little kids soccer, and you form relationships. And I think a lot of, yeah, that is, what are the families that you enjoy being around the most? What are they doing? And I think that's how it starts for sure. And by the time you get into middle school, you kind of figure out what you're a little bit better in, sports wise, and put a little bit more time. But all growing up, even through high school, always a three-sport athlete, and kind of the one season to the next. And, we see a lot of specialization nowadays. It wasn't quite like that, in the 80s or early 90s for me. But yeah, it was whatever the season was, that's what we were doing.
Yeah, and that is, as we know, that's how it should be. The research is very clear about the benefits of playing multiple sports. Do you recall at your school, did say your basketball coach ever come up to you and say, Brian, you shouldn't be playing football. You should be playing basketball year round. Was that a thing for you?
Never. And I think what helped that a lot is, my football coach was also my basketball coach and maybe helping with track, even though I was a baseball kid. We had so many multi-sport teacher coaches also. So it was natural to move on to the next season. And almost now, I don't know if any of my friends were single sport kids back then.
Right. No, and again, I'm a little bit older than you, but my experience was the same. And I was at a big public high school, but the head football coach was the assistant wrestling coach. The head basketball coach was the freshman football coach. The head baseball coach coached quarterbacks in the fall, and then he was the JV basketball coach in the winter, coaching 3 sports. So I'm a huge, huge fan of that multi-sport coach. Because a good coach can coach more than one sport. So that's
Absolutely.
a subject for a different show. Let's go and jump into your post-high school experience. You talked about going into the Air Force. Thank you for your service, by the way. As you came back, I think you mentioned Western Kentucky or Northern Kentucky?
Northern Kentucky.
Was coaching, part of your plan, or did you just kind of fall into that?
Yeah, no, great question. And I remember very specifically kind of when I figured it out. I originally, when I went in the Air Force, I thought maybe I wanted to be a police officer, state trooper, something like that. So I was security police in the Air Force. And I had about 6 months. My last duty station was in Turkey. So I spent the last 2 years of my service in Turkey. And 6 months when I decided I was going to get out, I knew I wanted to coach, and I'm trying to figure out what my major was. I started off as a history major, and a longtime athletic director who to this day is still a mentor of mine. And he was at a rival school, but he and my dad were good friends. I reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'm going to be back in a few months. Would love to coach anything. If you have anything open or of someone looking." And he said, "We need an assistant baseball coach. I can tell you that right now." I said, "I'm in." And as we just kind of talked about, I get home, all of a sudden I'm coaching middle school basketball and baseball in the spring. I wasn't a soccer player, but I'm helping with middle school soccer, just whatever I could do to be around it as I was finishing school. That's really how I got started, just kind of knowing I wanted really to be a coach before a teacher. And, that's kind of how it started. And as I mentioned, my mentor today is the one that got me started.
Oh, wow. That's great. And thanks so much for sharing that. I got started that same way, coaching before teaching. But I hear so often, and it's annoying, but it's just the way it is. Young graduates today, kids today, we always hear that. They want a job as an AD. They want to start as the AD, and they don't realize that, hey, you start just like we did, coaching, 4 different sports over the course of the year, maybe substitute teaching, getting that first teaching job, showing that you can work with kids and parents and other people. And, you work your way into that AD role. It's not an entry level position. Let's go and take our first break. Our guest today is Brian Phelps. He's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics at Indian Hill High School in Cincinnati. We're going to take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to start by thanking Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thank you to our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle School. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just love the platform. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle School. That's huddle.com.
We're really lucky to be a Huddle School as well, not just for football, but for a lot of our sports. And it really has come such a long way. It's a great product for us here at Indian Hill.
Boy, I appreciate you saying that. Now, for me, again, I use it as a football coach. The analytics and the stats, just tremendous. I still remember those days, getting up at 5 in the morning and driving 3 hours to make the handoff with the VHS tape back in the day. But when I retired a couple of years ago, we were just on the cusp of doing some live streaming and taking advantage of some of the other features. Are you using any of those at Indian Hill?
We absolutely do. We do everything through a YouTube channel, Indian Hill Television Network. We have a studio here in school, so IHTN1, Indian Hill Television Network 1, and we will use the Huddle camera to live stream to that YouTube channel, or if we don't have a regular live broadcast, because we have a group of kids that'll have the cameras out, but oftentimes we use Huddle to stream right to YouTube.
Oh, wow. Great stuff. Okay. I'm sure when we give out your email at the end of the show, people are going to be emailing, asking you about that program. Hey, let's get back to the interview. Our guest today is Brian Phelps. He's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics at Indian Hill High School in Cincinnati. Brian, you kind of took us up through, the Air Force and college. Now I'm going to ask you to share your career journey that has brought you to Indian Hill. I think it's important for particularly our younger ADs to hear about the journey that we all take. So what were some of the stops along the way that brought you to Indian Hill High School?
Yeah, so when I got out of the Air Force, I still had about 2 years left of college, and I started coaching 3 seasons at the Seven Hills School, a small private school here in Cincinnati. I ended up being there for 18 years. So from being a college student coaching 3 seasons, I became a physical education and health teacher, assistant AD. That journey started in 1999. In 2012, I was hired as the athletic director, still coaching. So throughout my time at Seven Hills, I coached at least one sport, but often coaching multiple. In 2018, we got an opportunity to go to Fort Worth, Texas, and I went to another great school, Fort Worth Country Day. Thought we would be there forever, and it was a great place. We have 4 kids. Our kids loved it, starting to make a lot of friends. My wife is a physician, and she got a job opportunity back here at home in Cincinnati that cut our trip to Texas a little short. So it brought us back to Cincinnati, and I really was lucky enough to land here at Indian Hill. It's the community we live in. It's my 6th year here at Indian Hill. And I don't know how many athletic directors or administrators, teachers, coaches can say however many stops they've been to, just great places, great schools, great administration, great kids. I've really been fortunate in my now 26 years of education. I've been at 3 just awesome places.
Boy, that is outstanding statistics. I share. I would teacher coach and AD for 41 years, and multiple stops, quite a few stops along the way, and each one, had something that I could take with me, put in my toolbox, if you will. The kids were always great. Usually the coaches were great. I think there's maybe 2 years out of those 41 where, let's say the person that I worked for, it just wasn't a good fit. So we both decided it was time for me to move on. But that's great for you. I don't want to jinx you. Let's start at your first school where you spent 18 years. What were some things that now looking back, you can say, we really did a good job there?
Yeah, I was really proud of so the athletic director that was there for 40 something years, my mentor, he was the AD in the late 70s and 80s and 90s, and just the opportunity to help grow with him, whether it's technology, whether it was helping families understand and guiding them through the college bound process, our sportsmanship committee, student leadership. A lot of schools call it SALT, that student athlete leadership team, were some things that we developed. I remember even given the opportunity to like, hey, let's create a meaningful handbook. Like that was one of the things that I was able to contribute that we really didn't maybe have the way it is now. But just then it's kind of the start of social media, and people have all kinds of different versions and of how they use social media. I'm a big social media guy, to be able to showcase our kids and our program and the things that we thought we were really doing well. So just being a partner in that with the previous AD as I was his assistant, and then taking over the program on my own to kind of bring some of that new life to the school, I think was really meaningful. I think that, kids always maybe here and there would go to play at the next level. We found a way to maybe help more families understand the process and celebrate that in a different way, and be more public about it. So things like that.
Anytime I hear sportsmanship, I always perk up. Good for you on emphasizing that. When you made the decision to take the job in Texas, was that something that you had heard about, that you pursued? Did they come after you because they recognized a quality leader? How did that all play out?
Well, so yes, yes, and yes. Kind of all of that happened. Being at a school 18 years, our oldest daughter was going in the seventh grade. I had contacted a recruiting service, Carney Sando, we may be looking for a move. And then it kind of came just out of the blue over the summer. We were getting ready to go on a family cruise, and in the private school world, you're kind of in the system, right? They know how long you've been at a certain school and the size. So I got a call out of the blue for the most part of, hey, there's a school that we think would fit you well, and they would like you. Would you be willing to talk to them? Would you be willing to come down and check it out? And we did. So just a lot of conversations at home. If we're going to do this, again, our oldest is going into seventh grade. Feels like the right time to make a change if we're going to. I'd mentioned my wife was with the orthopedic group as a physician. She was kind of ready to do something different. So it kind of hit at the right time. And it was, if we're going to do this, now is probably the right time, especially picking up and moving cities. And I would say 100% we're glad we made the move, because it was a great experience.
Now, going from Ohio, Midwest to Texas, was there any culture shock stories you can share?
Well, so Seven Hills did not have football, and I remember being in a interview group with parents, and that was the first question that I was asked was, how does somebody from Ohio come to Texas with a football school? And my icebreaker was, well, since Ohio football is a lot better than Texas football, I think I'm going to get to figure this out just fine. And, got a good icebreaker, right? Like kind of showed maybe some sense of humor type of thing. But this is what I said about that. And we happened to be back-to-back state champions the 2 years that I was there, more out of luck than anything that I did. Not luck. We had a great program, great coaching, great kids. But I said this in that interview, and I think it just came to me, that if you're a superintendent or a principal, you don't have to be able to speak Spanish to hire a great Spanish teacher, or know quantum physics to hire a good physics teacher. We're hiring people that know how to teach kids and coach kids, and that's really kind of how it turned out to be.
Oh, wow, that's great. So you started the football program?
I did not, but I was when I went to Texas, I was replacing the AD that was also the football coach. So I had to hire the next football coach, and we were just fortunate enough to be really successful the 2 years that I was there.
Oh, wow. Well, no, hey, that's outstanding, feather in your cap. We're going to talk about Indian Hill in the next segment, but I want to talk about coming back to Ohio. Now, you mentioned your wife's a physician. Obviously you're going to follow, that opportunity. you weren't. It wasn't like you were coming back or coming to a state where you didn't have any contacts and you didn't know anybody. But how did you hear about the Indian Hill position? How did that all come together?
Yeah, again, I remember it very specifically. The guy that was the athletic director was somebody I went to college with here at Indian Hill. And I had called him to tell him, hey, we're moving back to the district. My kids will go back to Seven Hills, the school that we came from. Not sure what I was going to do professionally, but we have a rule in Ohio. If you live in a public school district and you go to a private school that doesn't have that sport, they can play for the public school. In this case, it was field hockey. So he said, absolutely. Yep, that's still the law or the rule in Ohio. She can play at Indian Hill. And he said, hey, let me call you in a couple weeks and I'll tell you some jobs that I know that are going to be open. Well, when he called back, he said, hey, I'm not coming back. So if you're interested in this job, I'll help kind of spread your name, kind of thing. So that's really how it happened. It was during COVID. By the time I actually interviewed, so I flew back to Ohio and we're looking through buildings, because school was closed down. So it was a really weird time to be interviewing, but it just kind of all worked out.
Wow, boy, that's I don't know if that's serendipity or what, but certainly worked out well for you. Let's go and take our second break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Brian to take a deep dive into all things Indian Hill. I'm looking forward to that. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Beacon Creative Wall of Fame. Now, you're familiar with Vital Signs Wall of Fame. They've been helping schools share their legacies for over a decade. Now, Beacon Creative adds a content feature to the technology. Reach out to the team at Beacon Creative. They're going to take your data, your raw material about your kids, your teams, your school, and they're going to come up with some compelling stories to share that you can share on your digital platform. You really have to see it to believe it. And the good news is you don't have to lift a finger. I want you to email John Townsend, that's John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com. John at beaconwalloffame.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Home Campus. If you schedule, if you keep track of rosters, if you manage facilities, if you communicate with your coaches and parents, if you manage your student athletes' eligibility and clearance, you're going to use Home Campus every day. You really have to see it to believe it. It's the official platform for a number of states and thousands of high schools. Go to homecampus.com to find out more. We also want to thank our good friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team turn you into a social media marketing genius. Whether it's a simple social media post to celebrate a victory or an entire newsletter to showcase all the great things your athletic department is doing, the team at Gipper is going to have you up and running in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com for more information. And as always, don't forget to mention the podcast.
We have a lot of experience with Gipper. It's awesome how just the templates can really make an athletic director look really good. So as we are looking for ways to spotlight our kids or write newsletters or just fun things that we do, we really appreciate templates and graphics that Gipper comes up with. Like I said, it makes life a lot easier.
Yeah. Again, for a guy that came to, graphics and social media, towards the end of his career, initially I was just, do we really need to do this? But the feedback you get from the kids especially, and then also from the parents, of putting their child's photo up there from a soccer game or a tennis match or something. It's just, it's so easy to use, even for an old guy like me. But that return on investment is just off the charts. Am I overstating that, or do you have that same experience?
I think that's exactly right. Nowadays, whether it's a good thing or bad thing, kids and families want to see themselves and see their friends on, and we love to do that, and they just make it easier to do.
Yeah, I guess you can teach the old dog a new trick. Okay. For our listeners, once again, our guest today is Brian Phelps from Indian Hill High School. Brian, you talked about your journey that has brought you to Indian Hill. Share with our listeners a little bit about the school, the enrollment, location, programs you offer, and what are some things about Indian Hill that make you feel it's the best school around?
Yeah. So most years, again, depending what metrics you want to look at, we are voted the number one public school in the state of Ohio. We are about 2,300 kids K through 12, 660 in the high school. So in Ohio terms, we're that right in the middle from an enrollment standpoint. Not super small, not super big. And as a mid-sized program, we offer 30 sports. So we are offering a lot of things, a lot of kids. And to make that happen, kind of as we talked about earlier, we have a lot of multi-sport athletes, and we have to. We have to have our kids doing a lot of different things, and not just sports, but our kids are also in theater and in the chorus and in the marching band, and we really celebrate all the things that our kids do. But we're in a great area, very supported. We have an awesome administration and board of education, just community. I really believe that most schools have a lot of support, and I think most ADs would say, if you have 95% of your parents that are absolutely awesome, you're pretty lucky. And I would say that's probably the case for us.
No, and I think you're spot on there. I think any school, most of the parents get it. You end up spending 95% of your time with that 5%. It seems like. Question I always like to ask about coaches. I think we can all agree that all things being equal, and things are never equal, but all things being equal, we'd like to see our coaches in the building, teaching, working, doing something. I had some outstanding off-campus coaches in my career. They did a phenomenal job. But again, I think we'd like to see our coaches, when possible, in the building. What's your percentage of in-building coaches? Just ballpark figure. And I guess do you agree with what I just said?
Yes, I agree with what you just said, and we are really close to 50% of our coaches, and I think that's a great number. I know of some programs that have almost no one, so we're close to 50%. But what my unwritten rule is, I really want someone in the building on every staff. They don't have to be the head coach, but just that connection of what's going on in the school and the temperature of the kids. It's really important to me that we have someone in the building on every staff. And with maybe just a couple of exceptions, we're able to be successful with that.
All right. Many times I remember at my school, and again, I spent my career in Florida, 20 plus years at three, great independent schools, private schools. Often we would have, let's say, a middle school teacher or a high school teacher that really wasn't a coach from an X and O standpoint, but they would be an assistant coach on that staff just to supply what you just said, have that coach in the building on the team, just to help communicate with this person that was coming from work, sometimes coming from college as a young coach, to help communicate. Do you do anything like that?
Absolutely. And, we talk about sometimes there may be that, hey, I need a responsible adult in the building to help with the communication or the paperwork and that is a valuable role. The X's and O's aren't always, I mean, they're obviously extremely important, but that's not necessarily the skill set that every coach on the staff needs to have. There's every coach has a role, and I would absolutely say that's as important of a role as most on any staff.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And having said that, sometimes those individuals, they're going to grow into that X and O coach. I remember I became the head football coach and AD at my first school in Florida. And long story short, one of our history and Bible teachers, a young guy, he had never played football, but the kids were telling him, hey, we're having a lot of fun and new coaches, doing a good job. He came to me and he said, hey, I hear great things. I want to be a part of your staff. What can I do? And we trained him. We gave him a script. We took him out. We taught him drills. We said, you say this, you do this. And everybody thought he was this, veteran football coach because he was able to stick to the script, and he became one of the best assistants that I ever had. Again, we're supposed to provide professional development to our coaches. That's what we did with this guy. It really paid off for us.
Well, I love that you said that because I am a believer, whether as the AD or head coaches, we call them program directors in most cases, but our job is to build other leaders, and that can mean that Latin teacher that doesn't know a lot about football, but he knows a lot about kids and he's willing to be involved, and we can coach him up. We can help him grow into that role. We can help him be a leader in a different way. That's absolutely our responsibility to do those kinds of things. And it's one of the things that I take the most pride into trying to do.
Well, let's go and go down that path. I think professional development is something that athletic directors love to do for their coaches. You just outlined how important it is, but sometimes we don't get a chance to do it for a number of reasons, time, financial constraints, things like that. What are some things that you have been able to do at Indian Hill in the area of professional development for coaches?
Yeah, so we support very heavily for the coach that wants to go to their state convention or national convention. We are in a position where we're able to maybe not cover all of that, but definitely partner to make it work for them and their staff. So for those that can do that, we encourage it and we help with that, but we do try to do things inside our building as well. I talked about the student leadership team that we have. We have our coaches, obviously they're leaders in that, but they're also learning through that with the kids. So that's important to us. We find ways to during our seasonal meetings to learn from each other, get to know each other. We have some activities that we may do in a coaches meeting. So the football coach is spending time with the volleyball coach, not just to get to know them, but we'll have some prompts like, okay, here's the situation. How do you deal with the unruly parent? And the way the football coach does it may be different than the volleyball coach. So for them to learn from each other, I think is really valuable. And that's something specifically I've heard from our coaches. Hey, we love when we get to hear how other programs handle situations or run their practice or so, and that's just been in the last couple years for us. Maybe some of the most meaningful things that we've done has been right here within our own walls.
Oh no, absolutely. Having that opportunity to see how other coaches do it, either to get a new idea or sometimes to reinforce something that you're doing, and you go, wow, that somebody else is doing that. Maybe it's not such a crazy idea. Okay, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, find out how you do things at Indian Hill, or just add you to their network, what's the best way our listeners can connect with Brian Phelps?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's a good way to find me. Brian Phelps, Instagram, bphelps_IH. Phelps like the swimmer. He's a cousin. No, he's not. I'm just, but that I say that, and that usually sticks with people. So bphelps_IH is both my X and Instagram handle. My email address is brian.phelps at ihsd.us. That stands for Indian Hill School District. So ihsd.us. Would love to help in any way that I can. A couple years ago, we started an athletic director summit, which we can talk a little bit about later. And if that's something that appeals to athletic directors, would love to tell you more about it. But another great kind of more informal way of professional development and networking, and something I'm really proud of.
Oh, I love it. We got about 3 things we're going to talk about in our next segment. So we just added that to the list. Let's go and take another break. I know that's shocking for our regular listeners, but we are going to come back. Our guest today is Brian Phelps from Indian Hill High School. Please stay with us. We'd like to say thanks to our good friends at Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant athletic director, along with hundreds of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. And while they were all earning their degrees, they also got to complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to thank our good friends at Hometown. Hometown continues to be a game changer with their suite of solutions that includes things like, well, digital ticketing, of course. They're still the number one digital ticketing supplier, but how about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction, and a whole lot more? Hometown, whether you're an AD, a coach, even a principal, Hometown's going to show you how to save time, how to raise more money, and how to bring your community together. You'll find it all at Hometown, and don't forget to mention the podcast. That's hometown.com.
Hometown Ticketing is a great partner of ours. Clearly we use them for our everyday tickets. If you buy online, purchase online. But what we really have found a lot of value in is our summer camps. We now use them even for like homecoming tickets. There's so many different ways that we can provide that for our community when we have a casino night or golf outing, sponsors pay through. So there really are so many uses. Hometown's a great company to work with.
Well, again, thanks for sharing that. And you're absolutely right. I know of a number of schools that, they use Hometown for ticketing, for parking, for graduation, for, the school play, and, all sorts of different events. So appreciate you sharing that little nugget. Once again, for our listeners, our guest today is Brian Phelps. He's a certified master athletic administrator. Brian, that doesn't happen by accident. Can you share a little bit? How'd you get involved with your state association and the NIAAA, and why did you choose to pursue and attain your CMAA?
Yeah, I think back when I was an assistant at some point in the early 2000s, I'm just kind of that professional learner. I really like, if there's something I'm passionate about, trying to get as much information and development and knowledge that I can. And I started, we do a really good job, I think, in Ohio, getting people involved at the state level, and then that turned into going to the national conferences. I love the networking. I love the LTI or LTC courses. I think I have maybe taken 30 of them, throughout my journey. So I've got a lot of those classes under my belt. But when the CMAA or the CAA and then the CMAA, one, it's a point of pride, kind of the putting the time in to develop your craft. I think it's a good reminder, not only for yourself, but for others, that this is an important piece of your life and your career, and it's worth spending the time to attain those designations of accomplishment. It's a great professional network that we have. And, I don't think I started this necessarily just so I could say I'm a CMAA, but through the process and doing the great things that builds up to that, it was a great road, and one that never stops, but an important one for me professionally and personally.
So I have to ask, what did you choose to do for your project for your CMAA?
And so when I did the athletic director summit, it wasn't in my mind necessarily that this would be my project, but it fit perfectly for the criteria. So the first athletic director summit, which was 3 years ago now, ended up being my project. And there's a lot of planning with it, that we had a great few days, and it fit perfectly for the CMAA.
Well, we're going to talk about that next, but since you opened the door, let's go and do that now. Describe for our listeners, what is the AD Summit? Maybe how can they get involved?
Yeah, so a good friend of mine, Eric Taylor, that's at Kings High School, not too far away. When I was in Texas, we went to something that we thought was just awesome. It was West Palm Beach at the Kings Academy. There were 12 of us. It was we're going to get together and just learn from each other, something very informal. And, we love our OIAAA conference. We love the NIAAA and ADC. But it was like there's a way to have an intimate type of experience with a small group. So we said we're gonna have 24 ADs. we're going to kind of limit it to 2480s. We're going to have some keynote speakers. We're going to have some learning sessions. We're going to have hey, what if this happened? How do you handle it type of things? Well, that 24 turned into 32 as some people kind of found out about it and said, hey, I'd really like to come. And we had a 3-day experience that it was kind of an all day as the things that I've mentioned, where we brought some speakers in. We had some certifications, some leadership certifications that we went through. We had some workshops of just, hey, how do you recognize your kids at your school? How do you do signing day? How do you do, so it turned into this experience where not only did we get information, but we were able to connect with 32 other professionals and kind of build our network that way. Well, one of the things, and this will tie into the University of Cincinnati, Dr. David Kelly decided he wanted to come. And this summer, it looks like we will partner with the University of Cincinnati, hold it there. We're working on CEUs being available for those participants. We've decided that 24 is a great number from getting to know everyone, but we're going to expand it and invite more people to the party, if you will. So really excited of how this will continue to grow. And it really is just one of those things, gives us a chance to get to know other people and learn something from each other.
Oh, wow. Great. Now, so this is going to be year 3 for the summit this summer?
So, yes, it'll be year 3. And we held it at Indian Hill. Kind of our culminating experience has been having a couple luxury boxes at the Cincinnati Reds game. So that's the problem. If we grow too big, we grow out of the luxury boxes down at the Reds game. But yeah, we'll be in year 3 and really excited to continue to make it, even a little bit bigger, but a whole lot better even.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. And to be involved with it from the very beginning. All right. You mentioned University of Cincinnati and our mutual friend, Dr. Dave Kelly. He's in charge of their master's program in sport administration. Share your involvement in that, I believe, as a faculty member.
Yeah, so I'm an adjunct professor, and Dr. Dave Kelly's awesome. And it kind of really started from this AD Summit. I think he thought, hey, if you ever want to get involved, maybe you can. I think he felt like maybe I have a lot to share and, a little bit of talent that way. And so I've taught a couple of sport public relation classes. I have just finished up. Yesterday was the last day of our semester, a graduate class in compliance and governance, some in person, some online. I've really enjoyed that. Some great interns have come out of that, and I've been able to bring here at Indian Hill and help teach them the job and get them to network with other people and hopefully help them find jobs when it's time for them to do that. So I really enjoy that piece of it. I think when you get into this kind of job, you're in the people business, and more so of grading papers and, doing some of the stuff that's not as fun in our job. I just love to get to meet people and help them grow and be a resource and a contact for them. That's really what I love about that role in particular.
Now, you mentioned interns. I know Dave or Dr. Kelly is coming out with a new book about, the intern process. And you mentioned that some of these students become interns for you at Indian Hill. What are some of the things that you have them do at your school as interns?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I really want to know what they want out of it. And some of that is game management. Some of it is being part of meetings when we're meeting with coaches or even parents. Some want to be the social or the sports information director, kind of help with graphics and getting information out. Some want to learn to be announcers or, where we give them some opportunities to do some of our games on the mic. Some of them really love our behind the scenes. I talked a little bit about our sports media and our television network and interview coaches on the sideline. So we start off with what do you want to get out of this? And we really try to tailor it to that. We obviously need boots on the ground on a Friday night and everybody that we can have, they might be taking tickets or in the concession stand. um, I go back to one of my experiences when I was getting my master's. I might need you to direct parking.
Yeah.
That might feel like a really cruddy job, but guess what? That's some of the stuff that we have to do. And I talk about that. It's not all the fun stuff that we get to do, and you have to see the stuff that's not as fun as well. So I really enjoy that process. We've had some just absolute fabulous students come through, and hopefully we can keep that connection.
I was wondering if you were going to say parking. We had Florida State University in our backyard at my school in Tallahassee, and we had a number of students that they might just be there for a couple weeks, but on more than one occasion, they were the director of parking for a particular event. So, absolutely. Well, Brian, when I met you the other day at breakfast, I knew this was going to be a great interview, and you certainly have come through. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. We're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new AD, maybe one of those interns, on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 tools in the toolbox. So let's take that break. And when we come back, we're going to see what Brian Phelps puts in his new athletic director toolbox. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. You know, in my school, we use surveys for everything, for student athletes, for coaches, especially for parents. And here's the cool thing. The information that would come back on these surveys, almost always over the top positive. I'm talking 98%. We still got to hear from our squeaky wheel parents, but the surveys allowed us to hear their concerns, usually address them before they turned into something big. But getting back to that data, all of that positive data, incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal, sometimes even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've just spent a great time with our new friend, Brian Phelps from Indian Hill High School. He's a certified master athletic administrator, tremendous background in the world of athletics. But right now, I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new AD on their first job. But I'm only going to let him put 3 tools in the toolbox. So, Brian, what's going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Well, I think the first one is what can really help you or really get you in trouble, depending on how well you do this. Find a way to be a great communicator and decide what those vehicles of communication are, whether that's social media, a weekly newsletter, consistent emails, getting people together in a room to share the message. So find a way to be just the best communicator you can be. The second tool would be a relationship builder. And I think that starts with keep your ears open, do more listening than talking. People often just want to know that they're being heard. So the more that you can listen, the better off that you'll be and the better relationships that you can build. And then the third tool is really kids first, no matter what. And any decisions that are made, whether it's coaching decisions or programming, it's got to be is that decision or that program in the best interests of kids? Because we are in a kid business, a young people business, and that should be at the forefront of all of our decisions that we make.
Wow. I'm sure you saw me scribbling all those down. I love your turn of phrase on communication, vehicles of communication, and you tossed a few extras in there, in true athletic director fashion. Building relationships, and by doing that, or to do that, learn how to listen. I've said many times the listening tool was something that I failed to use until too late in my career. And then the kids first. Yeah. Wow. What a shock. We're in this for the kids. Kids first. Great, great stuff. Brian, one more time, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit or just add you to their network. And listeners, I think you got a tremendous resource here. What's the best way that our listeners can connect with Brian Phelps?
My handles for Instagram and X are bphelps_ih. My email address is Brian, Brian Phelps, like the swimmer, Phelps, at ihsd.us. That stands for Indian Hill School District, .us. So would love to hear from you. And if there's anything that I can do to help anyone, I'd love to have the chance.
Well, again, thanks for coming on in this busy time of the year. All the best with your teams, your coaches, your programs, including the University of Cincinnati in the coming months. And we're definitely going to bring you back maybe this spring or summer and do an update.
That's great. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
For our listeners, it's always fun to connect with you. We appreciate you listening. And just a reminder that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.